Happening later today in a New York courtroom, accused United Healthcare CEO killer Luigi Mangione is due back in court as his team fights to exclude key evidence and keep the death penalty off the table. Chanley Painter is here with the very latest. Hi, Chanley.
Hey, good morning, Carly. So in a few hours, like you said, the accused murderer of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson will be back inside a courtroom, this time in federal court, where his team is now asking the judge to suppress certain evidence against him and to take the death penalty off the table. Specifically, they want evidence found inside the 27-year-old's backpack seized during his arrest excluded, which included the alleged murder weapon and a notebook. Ultimately, Luigi Mangione's defense would like the judge to set a date for an evidentiary hearing on that issue. But also today, Mangione's defense will argue that they think the death penalty should be taken off the table. They first point to what they call the spectacle of his arrest for murder and the many public statements of officials about his guilt as prejudicing Mangione's case. The defense also claims that prosecutors improperly charged him with federal firearm laws in order to elevate his case to a death penalty case. So that is why they are also seeking the judge throw out two of his charges, including the charge of murder through use of a firearm. And then finally, Mangione's defense is demanding that Attorney General Pam Bondi recuse herself from the federal case, alleging a conflict of interest because of her previous work at a lobbying firm connected to the parent company of United Healthcare. But prosecutors fired back on those claims, calling them meritless and misleading, saying, quote, where no present or future financial gain exists, there is no conflict. So while the judge will likely not make any rulings from the bench today, we do expect her to set a trial date, though, for this federal case. Todd, I'll send it over to you.
Chanley Painter, thank you. A lot to get to. The perfect person to do it. Let's bring in Fox News contributor and criminal defense attorney Donna Rotunno. And you heard Chanley mention this, what I'm going to call the elevation argument, elevating a charge. Break down, because it can be a little bit complex. Break down in the simplest terms what the defense is trying to do.
So what the defense is trying to do is twofold. One, they're talking about issues from the backpack, which we've heard about in the state case. Because remember, there's a federal case, there's a state case. Today, he's going to court on the federal charges. The state court judge is not ruling on those issues to suppress until May. So we have a long period of time to wait on those issues. But in terms of the federal case, they're going to ask for that. But they are also asking that the court rule out the death penalty. They believe that the way this case was charged was not proper. I don't think they're correct in that assumption, but that's what they're going to ask the judge to do. What's interesting about the death penalty is if charges are death penalty eligible, then those are really questions for a finder of fact, and in this case that would be a jury. So it is really not up to the judge to determine whether or not that's something they can ask for unless it's improper in the way that the case is charged, which I don't think is the case here. I think it's very clear there was a murder with a firearm. I think the judge is going to say this issue of death penalty is going to be up to a jury.
Yeah, prosecutors elevate charges all the time. That's literally what a prosecutor's job is to do. Charge to the max. You've obviously disagreed with the defense strategy here. You don't think it's going to work. What does that tell you about how confident they are in their case?
Well, I'll say this. I think the defense has done a good job in certain aspects of this case. If you look at the state case, they did get the terrorism charges tossed, right? So that's a big win in the state case because that takes his life in prison off the table. So the defense has done a good job for him on the state case, even if they win nothing else. In the federal case, they're trying to do the same thing. If they can remove the death penalty, then that's a win for Mr. Mangione in the grand scheme of things. Do I think it's going to work? I don't, but that's for the judge.
So you don't think this is a sign of desperation? You think this is just standard good defense lawyering?
I do. I don't think it's a sign of desperation. I think some of the things that they have done have been a little overreaching, but that is their job. And remember, they are also preserving the record on appeal.
Right.
Because when or if he does lose, then they have said, look, we have raised these issues, and then it's for an appellate court to decide if this was the right thing to do.
What about the defense going after Pam Bondi, basically saying she has a conflict because she once worked for a firm that had United Healthcare as a client? Do you think this is going to work?
I don't think it's going to work. This is one of those things that I think may be a little overreaching. I think this is kind of trying to throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. I do agree with the government here in the sense that there was no financial gain, present, future, past in this situation. So I don't think that there's enough of a tie. Pam Bondi herself is not going to come into this courtroom and try this case. There's not a nexus or a connection that would make it unfair to Mr. Mangione.
let's be clear. The crux of their argument is that she has a financial connection to this case because she still has a 401k with the company that she used to work for. So under that argument, I have a conflict of interest working at Fox because I haven't rolled over my NBC 401k. Basically, that's it.
Correct. That is the argument, and I don't think that there's enough there. The other thing is that they're really trying to say that with the death penalty issue with regard to the government, the president, and Pam Bondi, that it was unfair that they came out to the press and talked about the fact that he should get the death penalty before the case was even indicted. I also don't think that that's going to be enough in terms of, that there's no constitutional crisis in the case that he is not going to not get a fair trial based on that. These are people out there saying if you kill somebody in the streets in the city of New York, you're going to face the death penalty, and I think that's okay too.
It's like a competition between you, Ritter, and Morrow to see who can explain legal topics better. I think the three of you should have a podcast.
Well, isn't it amazing?
Oh, it's crazy you guys do. Donna Rotuno, is always a pleasure. Thank you so much. You've got a busy day on the channel. We are looking forward to all of it.
Thank you.
Carly.
And it's a fabulous podcast at that.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.